Welcome to another Apollo Papyrus podcast episode. I am Aaron Apollo Camp. For this episode, my interview guest is the author of the children's book Allie's Big Adventure, part of a planned series titled Allie's Adventures. Her name is Roxie Fiste, and my interview with Roxie will follow the teleportation sound. Roxie Fiste, welcome to the Apollo Papyrus podcast.
Thank you for having me, Aaron.
Feel free to introduce yourself to our listeners.
My name is Roxie Fiste. I am an author of children's books. I also illustrate the children's books. I'm a mom and a wife, and I love model horses as well as the real thing. I am into amateur astronomy as well, even though I have some visual problems now. It's kind of slowed things down, but other than that, that's who I am.
Without spoiling too much of your children's book, which is called Allie's Big Adventure, what is it about?
It's kind of a fun book. It's just an adventure. This is a series. It's the beginning of a new series. He's a little puffball, which is a little two-legged character that in real life would probably stand about 2.5 feet tall off the ground. And he likes to bounce. He gets into trouble because of his uncontrolled bouncing. Because he's so young, he hasn't figured out how to do what he wants it to all the time. So he ends up trying to chase a dragonfly, and ends up very lost, very far from home, because he has an unexpected over-the-top bounce that takes him a long way from home. So he spends most of the book on a journey trying to find his way home.
Did you illustrate Allie's Big Adventure, or did you hire an illustrator for the illustration work of the book?
I illustrated it, and I started out with colored pencil. But for my next book, the one that is in production now, it was done in acrylics. So it should have a lot more of a pop to the pictures.
Without spoiling too much of any future children's books in your series, what are ideas that you have about additional books in the series?
Okay, the next one, Allie is trying to learn how to control his bounce. And he has all kinds of predicaments and problems that happen because he just can't quite get it. So he asks for help and ends up needing even more help than his parents can give him. So that's the premise for the second book. For the third book, he's going to try to go find 2 of the friends he made in the first book, because he hasn't seen them in a while and he misses them. So he's going to try to find them. And this is going to be kind of like a search type thing, where he's going to go back to all the places where he had been previously with them and hasn't been able to find them. And then at the end of that book, we will be introduced to a brand new character that will be for the next book after.
You mentioned that your Allie character is a puffball with 2 legs that's about 2.5 feet tall if it were a real life thing. What inspired you to create that character?
Okay, going back to high school, I was an art major in high school, and one of our, I think it was my junior year, 1972, I believe, in the winter, we were given a large assignment to make a film, develop a character in the film, and make a book, a picture book, all drawings, very little wording, and a comic book strip. So I had a little brother at home at that time. He was probably 6 years old, and he had a great imagination. And between him, I got my Micah character from his imaginary friend. He called him Boy. So that's what the name of my character was in the book before all this time passed. And then I went back and redid it and changed the name to Micah. And then Allie was something that I developed just playing around with some of my friends, I was making little characters, and I said, "What do you think of this? What do you think of that?" to my girlfriends, and we finally settled on Allie being this little bald 2.5-foot character with just legs, and he bounced. So
there's a talking pony character called Scout that you've created for the book you have published and the books you're going to publish. What inspired you to create Scout?
Okay, I've always loved horses. Since I was 3 years old and I met my very first one, I was crazy about him. And over the years, I began trying to draw them. And by the time I was in high school, and this assignment came up, I was pretty good at drawing a horse or a pony. So I was developing this pony, and I had a dream. And back in the 70s, there was a song called Horse with No Name. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I've heard that song on
on
streaming.
Yes, I fell asleep with that on my mind. Horse with no name, been through the desert on a horse with no name. So, and when I developed the book, I went ahead and put this pony in. He didn't have a name because he was a pony with no name at first for the assignment, but then I eventually gave him the name Scout. So, and he had to talk because I wanted him to have attitude, like he's going to speak his mind in each situation. So, yes.
How long does it take for you to develop a character for a children's book?
Well, it usually doesn't take very long. My most recent character, which is a sneak peek into the second book of the series, which is called Allie and the Ganderwat, it's in production right now. The Ganderwat was something I had seen, a shape that was from... It was in the middle of a valley, and this huge shape rose up from the valley, and it had trees on top of this thing. And I thought, well, that would make a really neat critter. So I began developing this critter. And it took me probably, I'd say a good month and a half to get him to where I wanted him. And developing everything he would do, how his arms would work, how his legs would work, what his head looked like with the strange looking hair. I just wanted it to kind of resemble that thing I saw in a valley, just kind of rising up out of nowhere. So sometimes it takes, it happens really fast. And I thought, okay, I know this is what I want the character to look like. And then other times it might take a couple of attempts, sitting down, sketching it out, and then deciding what this person or creature will do. So that's basically what I did with the Ganderwat. And he doesn't talk, he whistles. So I thought that would be fun for the kids.
Is Allie's Big Adventure self-published, traditionally published, or hybrid published? And will the next book in the series be published in the same manner?
The first one was hybrid published. I went through and decided that would be the best way to go. And I'm just going to be doing several of them through this hybrid publishing company. So I've been kind of satisfied with how things work out. They work with me all the way through production, and I have the final say on how everything looks in the end.
How do you prepare yourself when you begin writing a story?
I usually like a quiet area or somewhere where I can hear nature sounds. And if it's in the winter, I will go ahead and put on nature sounds so that I can listen. It's very calming to my mind and helps me focus. And then I get in touch with this little kid inside me. The little kid wants to tell a story, and I just follow suit and hash this thing out, each one. And we have a good time. The character in my head or in my heart, wherever you want to say he comes from, the little kid, tells me exactly what the next story should be about. And it's from a very young point of view. So that's basically what I do.
I might embarrass you with this next question, but what does your family think of your writing?
They like it. When I was growing up as a teenager, I developed the first story, and it was a picture book. And I still have that picture book. I have misplaced it at the moment. But my little sister, who came along after the little brother who helped me develop the characters, because he inspired me to do different things. And I thought, well, she enjoyed it. And then when my own daughter came along, she enjoyed it. And I've read it to a new number of kids, and they all seem to like it. So that really inspired me to get going here much later. Yes. But yeah. They like it. They like it a lot.
As a model horse collector, how many model horses have you collected?
Well, we recently downsized to a smaller place, but before we did, I had over 3,000 models. I like to have one of every breed. And now that we're in a much smaller place, I kept about 500 of the 3,000, and then I update them according to what looks really good to me at the moment. But yeah, it's been a lifetime type thing. And my dad got me started because he didn't want me around real horses. He was afraid I would get hurt. So he brought me my first model when I was 5 years old. And I had never seen anything so beautiful in my life. And after that, it was like, I want one for my birthday. I want one for Christmas, etc. My whole life. So when I got older, I was able to get involved with horses as much as I wanted to, basically go horseback riding here and there, and become, very involved in both worlds.
When this episode is uploaded, I'm going to include a link to your author website, as I do for nearly all of my guests. And I actually like the layout of your author website. Did you design that yourself, or did you hire someone to do that?
I worked with someone who knew what they were doing, and I told him exactly what I wanted, because the first time it looked like a business website that was for some construction company, and I was very upset. So I replaced all the pictures with my artwork and told them exactly where I wanted everything. And I just uploaded the possible cover for my next book, the main page, just to give parents and kids and caregivers an idea of what was coming. But yes, I had them lay it out exactly as I wanted it, with my original artwork. And that's the way I want to make it. I want it to feel cozy for parents and kids, that this is a safe place to come and hang out.
Roxie, you were an amazing and insightful guest. I thank you for appearing on the Apollo Papyrus podcast.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I have really enjoyed it.
It was wonderful to interview Roxie, and I wish Roxie well with the rest of the Allie's Adventures series. This is Aaron Apollo Camp reminding y'all to find your writing and reading purpose. Bye for now. Copyright 2024, Aaron Apollo Camp, all rights reserved. This podcast episode is intended for the private listening of our audience. Any reuse or retransmission of this episode without the express written consent of the podcast host is prohibited, except under fair use guidelines. Royalty-free music and sound effects obtained from https://www.zapsplat.com.